What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the Food City 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway, also on St. Patrick's Day, I believe, Sunday, March 17th, around 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And the dirt is gone finally for the spring race. We're back on the concrete, and as you can tell, I'm a big fan of it. We got in the background for a reason. Great track. Hopefully, looking forward to a great race on Sunday. And if this happens to be your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sundays, planning for around 12 or 1 p.m. Eastern for the live stream. So be there, be square, always a good time. And really quick, I do have to give a shout out to last week's winners from the YouTube comment contest. James and Dart for both being 2 off of Denny Hamlin's 67 laps led. So for this week, all you gotta do is comment down below who you think is gonna score the most fantasy points and how many, and the winner will get a cash prize. Make sure it's posted before the race starts and don't edit your comment. If you do enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Let's dive right into it. All right, so let's talk some strategy here at Bristol. And the number one thing you need to remember, or at least drill in your head this weekend when you're building lineups, is dominators, and oh yeah, dominators. There's 500 laps, which means there's 350 dominator points available for us this weekend. If you miss the dominators this week, or if you just purely build out of place differential, you are going to lose, or at least not take down any tournaments. Because if we look at the past, I believe 4 or 5 races here at Bristol, there's going to be at least 2 guys that lead 100 laps. I believe the last 2 races, we've had 3 guys lead over 100 laps. So while I'm recording this before practicing qualifying, there might be some big names that qualify in the back, but just keep in mind, sure, they'll have a safety net. For those guys that start closer to the front that can lead 100, 200 laps, it's going to way outpace those place differential points, assuming they don't wreck out. And you really can't look at any other tracks that compare to Bristol. It's very unique. It's pretty steep. It's small. It's a half mile in length, and it's also covered in concrete, which is not the identity of most tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series. If you want to look at the other concrete tracks, I would say Dover is big Bristol. I've been saying that for a while now. And while it's not a 100% correlation, I mean, we have seen guys that do perform well at Dover. Somewhat translates over to the concrete in Bristol, and you can also look at Nashville, although that's an intermediate track and it's also flatter. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown, I do have to mention one thing first, and that is, of course, if you enjoy the community over on Patreon, links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. Projections to both sides, DraftKings FanDuel, ownership projections, my own personal optimizer, my betting dashboard, which gives you the fair odds or leverage scores based off the odds on the sports books compared to what I have for the outrights, top 3, top 5, and top 10s. Article going over cash games, tournaments, and the entire NASCAR model that I don't show you all on YouTube, but it's all color-coded nice and neat, so it's quite easy to follow and all the data that I think you would need to help make yourself better lineups on Sundays. So if you want to check it out, you know where to find it. The link can be found down below. And you'll get access to the Discord, which is popping 24/7. Always a good time. Just a heads up, when I have had time, I've been doing truck and Xfinity projections over in the optimizer, so that's something that's also interesting to you. I have been uploading those when I've been able to. And as you all may or may not know, I am a partner with Stochastic, and I did launch their NASCAR Sims tool and all the other sports as well. So if you want to come in, check it out. You can do the pre-contest simulator, see which drivers are popping the most with the best return on investment, or which lineups are looking the best to use on Sunday. You can use their own projections or upload mine or your own. It's a very simple process. So if you want to check it out, you can find it in the link down below in the description. All right, so practice and qualifying just ended a few moments ago, and I gotta say, we did have some interesting stuff that did happen. So this is my first rundown through the entire slate with you all. The more of this stuff will be on the Patreon later tonight and on my live stream tomorrow afternoon. So, and I want to mention that these are not the most up-to-date odds. These were pre-practice and qualifying, which I assume are going to change quite a bit. But yeah, I thought the way qualifying went compared to practice, and we did have the second group in practice just get absolutely screwed over by the track. So when we're looking at practice speeds, that's something you have to keep in mind. Is if I just pull up the practice chart here, the guys in yellow, I believe you can see that, are in the second group. And as you can see, they have all of the slowest times. So obviously they're not all going to be the slowest cars. It's just the nature of how it shaked out in practice. Because we did have the very early caution with Ty Gibbs scraping the wall. And then overall, it was just pretty ugly after that. Martin Truex Jr. said the track was dirty and the speeds were slower. So keep that in mind when we talk about practice speeds this week. But let's start with the 10K and up group. And we have Kyle Larson leading us off. He's starting in 10th. He did open up as the odds-on favorite. Kind of tied with Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. If you're looking at certain books this week, they were all right around 400, 500 pretty much throughout the week. If you're looking at practice, he was in that second group. So we're going to have to cut him some slack here. But 17th and 18th, that was actually some of the more quicker numbers in his second group, so I don't think he's going to be slow by any means. And if you're looking at his Bristol numbers, he passed 8 races here. Obviously, very good. Pretty much first in just about most categories here, the most dominant points. Pretty much top 5 contender and a guy that can lead laps. And I think he will be a contender on Sunday. The problem is he's just very expensive. We do have some other guys that do look like they're going to have some speed this week as well. They're starting a little bit further up in the field, so he's by no means a lock, but he should be in contention. So he's in the GPP pool at the very least. Denny Hamlin, $11,200. He won this race last year. JGR overall absolutely crushed. They had 3 guys lead over 100 laps in that race, and his numbers as well in practice. Very bad, but at the same time, it was in that second group, so I really just think we kind of have to throw that out. But overall, very good numbers at Bristol. He's in that tournament pool as a potential dominator. And I think as of right now, I might slightly prefer Denny Hamlin, just has a little bit more of a preferred position. I think there's a better chance he could lead early on over Kyle Larson, but they'll honestly probably project pretty similar. Larson just has more of a safety net starting 7 spots further back. And Christopher Bell, I think you can probably throw these guys all in the same group here, where they're going to be in the tournament pool for me. I don't think any of them are going to be cash game considerations just because we have Ryan Blaney in the poll. Looked amazing. Looks like he's going to have the car to beat as of right now. So he's going to be the guy that I would get to the most in this 10K range. Then after that, I can't just recommend just jamming in all these 10K up and guys. So I would say outside of Ryan Blaney, you're just kind of mixing and matching as far as the dominators are concerned. Bell, fast in practice, but he was in that first group, so maybe the numbers are a bit inflated. But overall, he's been very good at Bristol, and if you're looking at the past couple of years in the next-gen era at regular Bristol on the concrete, Christopher Bell is pretty much at the tops of the charts and dominated this race last time out. So put him in that same group as Larson, Hamlin, Bell. They're expensive for a reason, but it's going to be hard to get to them a ton just based off the price tags. William Byron kind of in the same group. I wouldn't say he's as good at Bristol as Bell, Hamlin, and Larson, so I'd have him a tick down. But overall, I think he's the guy that can contend, and he obviously qualified in the top 10. So getting good track position is always going to be a start. But as of right now, I don't really see myself getting too much William Byron just based off the pricing here. Ryan Blaney, he is probably the guy you are starting with in cash games this week. He's on the pole, which obviously track position at a short track like Bristol is going to be pretty huge. He was first in the 5 lap, first in the 10, 15, 20, and 25 lap runs in practice. And while he was in the first group, so you could say that maybe that is inflated, he backed it up in qualifying by having the best lap. So it looks like he has a super strong car. And I'll tell you right now, I am very happy about that because I did bet him 15-1 to win earlier in the week over at Bet Rivers. And I assume once odds come back out, he might just be the favorite to win. So loving that bet currently. And then we have Kyle Busch, $10,200. He's starting at 14th. Practice was all right, I guess. He was second in the 1 lap, but he was in that first group. So not really sure what else to put into that. 7th in the 5 lap, 18th in the 10. I feel like he's going to be a better FanDuel play because I'm not really sure if the dominator points are going to be there and you're still paying 5 figures for him. And I'd rather just pair Ryan Blaney with guys like Christopher Bell I know he's a little bit more expensive, but for $800, I feel like I can make that work. I feel more comfortable. But over on FanDuel, $9,000, I don't really need the dominator points out of him. Starting in 14th, should be a top 10 contender. I think I'd have more interest over there. And as you can tell, I mean, Kyle Busch has been amazing for Bristol. His career, the past 10 races here, 3 wins, 6 top 5s, good chunk of dominator points. So you can never rule out Kyle Busch at Bristol, but I don't think he's going to have the car to beat by any means. Dropping down to the 9K range. Chris Buescher, $9,800. He is starting all the way back in 34th. RFK won this race not too long ago. They have ran well at Bristol in recent memory. Looking at practice for Buescher, 12th, 9th, 8th, 13th, 8th. He was in that first group, keep in mind. So again, numbers could be a bit inflated, but either way, I can't imagine Chris Buescher is going to be a borderline top 30 car. So if you can fit him in, I am fine with that. I would want to prioritize in these price ranges dominators because sure, he has a super safe floor, but let's say, for example, Joey Logano at much lower ownership comes out, ends up getting up front, getting fast laps, getting lap lead points. It's a very small track. We take 15 seconds to get a lap here. So those honor points can accumulate quite quickly. So that's just something to keep in mind for tournaments where, sure, the safety net is not there for Logano, but if he can get up front, he's going to way outpace Chris Buescher, assuming there is no carnage for him and he wrecks out. Because if he finishes top 10 and he gets all those dominator points, you're going to want him over Chris Buescher, assuming Buescher doesn't crack the top 10. For example, but Buescher is certainly a fine cash play, but he is a little bit pricey, but I have no problem with him. Joey Logano kind of just made my spiel there. Although over on FanDuel, only $8,200, and they really don't get quite the dominator points over there, but it's kind of hard to ignore. Top 5 in practice was in the first group. Keep in mind, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that's something that needs to be noted. But love that price over on FanDuel. Very easy to fit in as a tournament play, I would say. Brett Keselowski, $9,200, $11,500 over on FanDuel. He's starting in 17th. I'd have a hard time seeing Keselowski not be a top 10 contender in this race. Because sure, we can look at the practice, although I think it's very skewed this week. But overall, Bristol, it's a very unique track, and the guys that are good at Bristol tend to just be good here in general. And Keselowski is pretty good here at Bristol, so he is in the pool for me. But since I think everyone is probably going to flock to Chris Buescher, then you'll also have Ross Chastain not too far behind it, starting in 36 and only $8,500. I feel like everybody from Logano, Keselowski, Reddick, Truex will probably be pretty low owns. That's not a bad tournament range, but they're not going to project as well. Tyler Reddick just tends to struggle here at Bristol. Very talented driver. He's been great so far this year. One top 5 the past 5 races here. I don't really see a reason to love Tyler Reddick. Like, sure, the long run numbers look good, but not really many guys ran over 20 laps in practice. And he was in that second group, so these numbers are going to be a bit slower, but didn't really overly impress me in qualifying, and I don't see him dominating at any point. And I can get more place differential off of Ross Chastain, so I don't see myself getting to Tyler Reddick at that price point. Martin Truex Jr., $8,800, was in that second group, keep in mind, so probably going to be better than that than what he practiced, qualified 11th. Don't really see him making too much noise here. Bristol really isn't his best track on the road if you're looking at his numbers the past 10 races, averaging position of 17th, and only one top 10 finish, so if you wanted to fade Martin Truex, I don't think that's bad to do this week. Ross Chastain, $8,500. He will be a cash game staple, starting in 36. Was in the first group, so these numbers are looking pretty good. But either way, he's not going to be a 36th place car, assuming he can just battle his way into a top 20, doesn't go a lap down super early. I mean, if he can stay in the lead lap the entire race, great, it'll probably be optimal, assuming you can nail your other dominators. So, liking Ross here as a cash game staple. Chase Elliott, $8,300. He's starting in 5th. If you can't play both of them together, I love the pivot to Chase Elliott in tournaments. I know he practiced horribly, but he was in that second group. And Bristol is a great track for Chase Elliott. I've been calling him Concrete Chase the past couple of seasons because at concrete tracks, he tends to perform pretty well. So this is a 6-race sample size of Bristol, Dover, and Nashville in the next gen era. It's a 6-race sample size, and as you can see, these numbers, very good. 4.3 average finish, which is the best of all drivers, has 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and some dominator points mixed in as well. I do have a couple bets on Chase Elliott this week. Got about half a unit on him at plus 2,000 to win. Also got like 0.1 unit at plus 2,250, I believe. And then also got him for a top 10 at plus 100. Did a full unit on that. So I got some money on Chase Elliott this week, but I feel good about my bets because that's all I got. I have Chase Elliott, I have Ryan Blaney, both qualifying the top 5, and feel pretty good about it. And this is a very good track for Chase Elliott. 3 top 5s here the past 10 races, 5 top 10s. So you can sign me up for him in tournaments. I'm hoping the slow speeds in practice kind of scare people off, but I just don't really think that matters too much. And the track position is going to be good. And then Ty Gibbs, $8,000. He's starting at 19th. He's going to be a bit interesting this week because, as you can see, practice very bad, but he did hit the wall early on, caused the caution in the second group, and they thought they had some issues. It sounds like they fixed it up a bit, but there is a chance he could drop to the rear if they have any issues they need to fix after qualifying. So keep that in mind, which would hurt his upside a little bit. But if he can hold his track position, I think you have to have some interest here at $8,000 just because he was super strong here last year. We led over 100 laps and contended for the race when, I mean, Ty Gibbs is too cheap because anytime you can get a JGR car at this kind of a price point, you have to take it. I've been saying that the past couple of weeks. And obviously, Ty Gibbs has been crushing it. But I do have a little bit of concern this week just because he did hit the wall, so I'll have to see what they do with the car overnight. But if he does not end up going to the rear, that would certainly boost my confidence a bit. And we got some pretty interesting plays here in the 7K range. Outside of Bowman, you could probably look at them in tournaments. Bo Wallace, very fast in practice. Wasn't the first group though, but backed it up being top 10 in qualifying. I think at this price point, he's going to be in play. 9 races here at Bristol. Not the most impressive resume in the world. Only 1 top 10, 3 top 15s. I assume he's probably going to move back, so I don't have a ton of interest in Bubba, but I'd probably rather play just Bowman here at $7,500 on both sides. He's starting in 29th. Looking at practice, he was in that second group, so I mean, how much do you really want to put into it? 21st in the 5 laps still. I mean, I assume he's going to be able to move up. And if you're looking at his numbers at Bristol, just better numbers overall. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 15s. So I guess if I had to pick, I guess I'm easily going Bowman because you're getting him 20 spots further back. And I feel like at the end of the day, they'll probably finish somewhat close to each other. So at that point, just give me Bowman. Briscoe, pretty high risk tournament play here, starting in 6th. Looks like he had some speed though in qualifying, which was nice. Practice, hard to look into it too much. Looking at his races at Bristol, we do have a 3-race sample size here. 2 top 15s. The problem is where he's starting. If he can hold track position in stage 1, maybe stage 2, and pick up fast laps here and there, I could see that working out if he can hold a top 10 finish. So he's a deep tournament play. Eric Jones, another guy that just was a victim of being in that second practice group. But Bristol has been a very good track for Eric Jones in the past. You're looking at his numbers, 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s. He's led some laps here way back in the day. I remember when he was in the 77 car. I believe he led a good chunk of laps in one of those races. That was a long time ago, though not relevant right now. But starting in 15th, I think he is in that tournament pool. Probably prefer him over the likes of Chase Briscoe and Bubba Wallace as of right now, but probably close between him and Bubba. But I think Bowman's probably leading us off as far as our favoritism is in the 7K range. Then Daniel Suarez messed up qualifying. He's going to be starting in 28th. He was 11th in the 1 lap in practice, 16th in the 5 lap, but that was being in the first group. Looking at his numbers at Bristol, 10 race sample size, 2 top 10s, 4 top 15s, 7 top 20s. More than likely going to move up. So if you just need a guy with place differential and you can't quite get the Bowman in this price range, I guess Suarez isn't a terrible consolation prize. Dropping to the 6K range, Michael McDowell, starting in 7th, which probably screams scary. And he did kind of luck out last week because the field got flipped a bit. And outside of Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney, you were just holding track position the entire time. But he's actually ran pretty good at Bristol in the past. Now, I know his numbers in the past 10 races aren't super impressive, but recently they have been pretty good. So I think starting in 7th, if he can hold that track position, which I'm not confident he's going to be moving up or finishing even top 7, but if he can finish within the top 12, and some of these PD guys end up failing, like a Daniel Suarez, or even an Alex Bowman, who's in somewhat of a similar price range, that's where Michael McDowell works out. But I'll tell you right now, he's probably not going to project too well. That's one of those things where you just kind of have to hand build, select him, and it's going to feel gross. And I'm not saying if you're playing a single entry to play him, but if you're playing 20 max, 150 max, if you're going to throw a couple Michael McDowell shares in there, might not be the worst idea in the world. Noah Gragson, he has been impressive so far. So I will give some hats off and respect to Noah Gragson. He's starting in 22nd. I feel like he could probably hold ground or at the very least move up, but he's right there in the middle where I don't like him. I don't dislike him either. So whatever the optimizer gives me, I'll take. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's also had success at the concrete tracks before in the past. We're looking at Bristol recently. 1 top 5, 2 top 10, so it's been pretty hit or miss for Ricky, mostly miss. But the past 6 races in the next gen era at the concrete tracks does have 2 top 10s and 3 top 15s with an average finish of 16.3. So starting in 27th, he'll probably be able to move up, but I'm not seeing a ton of upside here for Ricky Stenhouse. Josh Berry, if he happens to steal the lead early on from Ryan Blaney and lead some laps, yeah, you're going to be very happy at $6,500. But I think that's probably a pretty unlikely scenario. So outside of that happening, I can't really see Josh Berry hitting the optimal here. Corey LaJoie starting in 18th, based off of practice, it would indicate he's probably going to hold ground, but he was in that first group, and he was one of the slower cars in the first group, so it doesn't seem too promising for me. Austin Dillon was in the second group, and if you're looking at his long run numbers, they actually weren't terrible considering. 19th in the 10, 15th in the 5, and then 9th in the 20, although not many guys ran 20 laps, just 10 guys. Can't really look into that too much, but if he can contend for a top 20 at $6,300, starting in 31st, not a bad day at the office. So I don't think we can rule out any Austin Dillon this week, even though I just hate playing the guy. Austin Cindric, $6,200. He's slow, starting in 21st. I don't see much upside here, and we probably all have a bad taste in our mouth after last week. He was starting dead last, and he just gets taken out immediately by Derek Kraus and them guys in the back. So that was very unfortunate. And I don't really see much upside here, so can't really see myself playing Cindric. AJ Allmendinger, I don't hate. Looking at his numbers at Bristol, 5 race sample size, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, and you're not expecting much out of him. Was decent in practice, but he was in that first group. Starting in 30th, probably a similar play to Austin Dillon, but if you have the money for AD, I think I prefer him slightly more, even though the numbers in practice are a little bit better, but he was in that first group. John Nemechek, pretty much similar to Dinger, but wasn't that first group. He has not been super impressive to start the season. I feel like all these guys just feel like the same exact play, but in order of preference, I would say AD probably leads him, but not me giving a stamp of approval is just jamming him in. Out of all the ugliness here, he looks a little bit better than the rest. Ryan Preece, $5,900. He's starting in 25th. Probably going to run pretty much where he's starting. Don't see a ton of upside here. 6 race sample size at Bristol. Does have an average finish of 15.5, running position of 20th. If you're just going based off of track history, doesn't look too bad, but I mean, I think I'd rather just play Hocevar starting in 35th here. $100 cheaper, starting 10 spots further back. Ran very well here in the 42 car. Last year, I believe it's only 1 race sample size, so this is exactly what happened. He finished 11th, running position at 12.6, 84 driver rating, and he's been pretty good so far to start the year. Now, he has been qualifying well, ended up qualifying 35th because he was all over the track. I know he didn't practice well either, but he was in that second group, so we'll have to give him a bit of a pass there, so I'm fine with Hocevar. If you want to make him your cash game cheap guy, I get it. Todd Gillen had some speed, starting in 24th. I guess he'd be fine as a pivot, but all these guys just look like such awful plays on paper. Zane Smith starting in 16th. I know he had some speed. Tournaments, maybe. Maybe him and Hocevar are going to flip-flop where Zane Smith qualifies poorly, runs poorly, then Hocevar qualifies well, runs well. Maybe that's going to be flip-flop this week. Daniel Hemrick was in that first group, so I'd say these times a little bit inflated, but qualifying 20th. I guess that helps him a bit, but we had some pretty decent big names qualify poorly, so you can't put everything into qualifying either. Harrison Burton's way too high for me. Can't see myself getting there. Justin Haley, if I had to pick between him and Kaz Gralla, the 2 Rick Ware cars, I'm going with Haley 100% of the time here. I just don't really have any interest in Growler whatsoever. With that being said, I think that's all I got for you guys this weekend. So I hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Make sure you check out the live stream tomorrow, probably right around 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock. So come in and say hi. I'd love to see you. Don't forget about the comment contest. Just comment down below who you think is going to score the most fantasy points and how many. Just make sure you comment that before the race, and the winner will get a cash prize. I wish you all the best of luck. And if you want to check out all the extra content, you can find that link down below in the description for my Patreon. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all tomorrow or next time.